Welcome back to my channel, YouTube viewers. This is everything that I have so far. Up to this point, I've got this jug that I tried to filter. And as you can see, the filter is full of fine sediment. It's probably going to be gold, so I want to save that. And then over here, this is the unfiltered solution that I drew out of the beaker in part 2 of this series. And if you look underneath here, it's got a bunch of sediment that's settled out. And so what I need to do here, let me show that again. I have a tendency to show things too briefly and then move on. But there you can see the sediment. So what I think I'm going to do here is I had to stop and think about this morning in the interests of showing a good series here on how we process everything. What I think I'm going to try to do, get these solutions processed and filtered before we move on to the gold-filled scrap down here. All right, let me take this funnel out of the way here. I've got my fume extractor turned off right now because it does make a lot of noise and make it hard to hear. But as soon as I start this reaction with this material in here, what I'm going to have to do is turn it on. This is the fluid that we filtered yesterday. Poured about took about, 2 liters of liquid. Pulled it through that filter, but it took an hour and a half to do it. This is cut up copper from a piece of 3/4 inch tubing, and I'm just going to set it in here now. I'm going to start cementing the silver out of this solution onto this copper. And there's going to be excess nitric in this solution. So I expect to use a lot more copper than I normally would when cementing silver on copper. And there'll be some heat and some fumes produced in here. So I'm going to turn my fume hood on now. And what I'm thinking about doing is starting up a GoFundMe to finance a new fume hood. So what I'm going to do is get one with an external blower located in the attic, so we don't have to listen to all that noise. But now what we're going to do, I'm going to set this in the back, out of the way, and we're going to put this funnel, or this filter that's loaded up with purple mud. That's going to have gold in it, so I want to save it. So we're going to try to get that off into a container down here and save it. We'll rinse this out real good. And let's get this thing out of the way temporarily. Let's pull this up. And what I'll do is rinse the stuff out of here down into this beaker. What we're doing here is getting this. It's the only funnel I got this size. It's the biggest one I've got, and I want to use it to filter these remaining solutions. Put the gasket in the filter flask. Set this filter up now, or this funnel, to filter the solution out of this big flask here. I've got a small bucket down here, turned upside down, piece of wood on it. And now what we'll do is we'll take our filter flask and set it down here on this piece of wood. Put a piece of filter paper in here now, and we'll wet it with some distilled water. I'm going to connect the vacuum tube here. Got my vacuum pump running. Now we're going to siphon the liquid out of this big flask down into the filter and start filtering this liquid out of this flask. The liquid has settled now, so all the particulate that was floating in the liquid should be on the bottom of this flask, and it won't clog up the filter paper so bad. I've let this settle for 2 days now. Haven't touched this experiment for 2 days, and so everything's been allowed to settle out. I'm moving this flask out of the way carefully. I got most of it out of here, but there's still some sediment down here, so I want to be careful and not stir that up. So now what I'm going to do is take the funnel off of here and get it out of the way. Now what we're going to do is take down our cementation jar here where we're cementing our silver. And I'm going to add this solution that I just filtered to this jar full of copper. The copper in that beaker will cement the precious metals out of that solution. Set this back in the back here, out of the way for now. Now we're going to get set back up with the filter flask again and continue to get the rest of the solution filtered through this filter paper. If you look in here, the filter paper is nearly clean. That's because we allowed those solutions to settle overnight. Clean solution that was settled pulled through that filter, what I can do now is go ahead and pour the rest of this that has the sediment in it. The sediment is what loads the filter paper up and slows the filtering process down. So now instead of having to filter the entire flask with the sediment, all I have is about 200 or 300 milliliters. I'm going to go ahead and pour that in right now. Now this will load the flask up, or this will load the filter up very quickly because it's a fine sediment going in here. Notice that the filter slowed way down already. Alright, the sediment in here will help us increase our yield will recover it out of these filter papers that we're collecting here when we incinerate the material, and it will help the yield. Probably not very much, but in refining, every little bit counts. So we're going to go after it and include it with our batch here. Got all the liquid pulled through the filter. Got the solids in my filter here. Now what we'll do is I'm going to take the filter off. And we're going to take the filter paper out, add it in with this other one, because we want to save. The solids in this filter. May have gold in that muck in there, so we're gonna just get it to cut loose here. All right, that's our second filter. Another large beaker here. What we'll do is add the solution that we just filtered down here. Gonna pour that into this container. Gonna add some pieces of copper. Start cementing any precious metals out of this solution now. Yeah, it's turning gray. Not very much, but there's a little bit of precious metals in there. We'll just let this react now. All right, let's get set up to draw the liquid off of our gold-filled foils here. We've done a nice recovery on those foils. Now all we got to do is draw that liquid off of there and get our foils into a funnel or a filter. So I'm going to get set up to do that now. Here we go. We're going to put the vacuum bottle in service here, and we're going to get the solution out of this beaker in the back. Get to our gold foils. Here we go. When I get halfway through, I've got a fine tipped pipette. I'll swap that out for this big open-ended one. We'll get all the solution out of there. This solution will have a ton of free nitric in it. So I may take this solution, add some silver to it to consume the rest of the free nitric that's in this solution before I try to cement the metals out with copper. Let's switch out the tips here. Put in a fine tip. Go for the rest of the solution out of here. Now, we already got plugged up, man. Here's our gold foils and purple mud, which is gold material in there. This should be completely void now of base metals and ready to, we're going to pour this in a filter, get it captured in a filter, and then go to Aqua Regia with it. Okay, and here in the back I've got some of the first solution that we pulled off, plus a little bit added with the silver cementing out. Here's another beaker with the recovered base metals. We're cementing the silver and precious metals out on copper in here. So both those beakers are in service right now, cementing metals out of the solutions. This solution right here is the solution that we pulled off of our gold foils here. This is going to be full of nitric acid that has not been used up yet. So it's going to have a bunch of free active nitric acid in it. So rather than trying to cement the metals out of this with copper, all it'll do is burn up that copper. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add that solution to a beaker here that's got some pieces of silver in it, and I'll probably end up adding some more silver to it until I get all the nitric consumed in this solution. Here we go. We're just going to pour this into the beaker with the silver in it right now, so we can consume the rest of this nitric. It's a clear solution, not very much sediment in it, and so it's suitable for dissolving some more silver here. Okay, the fume hood is getting crowded now because we got all these big bulky solutions. There's those two filters. We'll burn those and add them to the gold filled material. Here is one of the beakers that we're cementing out our silver with. And you can see the silver is bloating and rising to the top. That's an indication that we have excess free nitric in there. That's what it'll do if we got free nitric present. As the filter cement, or as the silver cements out, it starts forming gases from reacting with the free nitric in here, and then it tends to float to the surface. All right, and the one in the back here, take a look at this one. And this one is going to do the same thing, only worse, because this was from a solution that we used later in the process. It's going to have less silver and more nitric, but we'll just let them pieces of copper stay in there, and then we'll until the reaction's completed, then we'll get the silver out of these jars here and recover that. Alright, let's make some room here. This is the jar that we've got our silver dissolving in. If I can set this back out of the way, it just barely fits in there. We'll pull this up front, and now we can start working with the star of the attraction of the show here. This is our gold-filled scrap that's been treated in hot nitric, and this should all be just gold material now and ready to be processed in aqua regia. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up a funnel and funnel these solids away from that liquid. I'm using two different size funnels here. This one will fit inside this one. So what I'm going to do now is fashion a filter paper that will fit down into this Buckner funnel and right up the sides, so that we can capture all of the solid material out of our beaker. This is a method that I've used in the past, and by fashioning this filter like this, I can capture all of the solids and none of the solids will bypass the filter and get down into the funnel. Now we can take our filter, put it down inside of our funnel here, and what this will do is this will prevent any of the solid material from bypassing our filter. Now we're going to set up a filter flask, and we're going to pour the solids into this specially prepared filter. Here I'm adding some distilled water to get that filter paper wet, and so it'll seal up good. I start pouring the mud and the liquid into the filter there, and I'm getting ready to pull the solids down and add those to the filter, and I realized that I have not checked those solids with a magnet yet. Got a magnet inside of a plastic bag here. I'm going to check our gold filled stuff for anything magnetic. Make sure I don't have any pieces of steel in here. So far I'm not seeing anything. This is good. Alright, we've got every bit of magnetic material dissolved in here. Nothing's moving. And that's what we want to check before we commit it to our filter to be incinerated. Alright, now we're going to put the foils into our filter here carefully. Foils in this filter now, and what we're going to do is let it pull all that liquid out of there, and then we'll try to rinse it off a little bit. The thing here is to try to get as much of this solution off here as possible, because it might contain a little bit of silver. Once we get all the silver rinsed off of here, then we can take this filter that's got our foils in it and do the incineration. I just had to show this. While I was waiting for that solution to pull through the filter, I added some silver to the nitric acid solution in that big beaker there, and those two pieces began to float. And if you notice, there's a cup-shaped portion on the bottom of each piece, and it was filling with gas and then tipping sideways and kind of letting out a little bubble. And it was kind of neat, man. So I had to put that in there and show this. And here in a minute, you'll see I get a little bit closer, and we'll get to watch one of them tip over and sink. I tried to get this guy sinking like the other one did, but it stayed afloat there for a good long while. Finally, I had to pull the camera off so I could continue and finish the video. I've got all the blue liquid pulled off of our foils now. What I'm going to do is rinse it out the best I can with some distilled water. And we want to try to get as much silver rinsed out of here as possible. There's going to be some silver in here no matter how good we rinse. So we're just going to try to get a little bit of distilled water pulled through this stuff. Get some of the silver off of it. Again, with that finely divided sediment clogging up that filter, this filtering went painfully slow. This is about an hour and a half's worth of footage. While I'm waiting for the rinse water to come off the foils, what I'm going to do here is I got another piece of silver. I'm adding more silver to this solution up here to consume all the nitric acid out of there. And I'm just going to keep adding it until I don't get no more fume production inside the beaker. Just going to float this in there now, carefully. Let it dissolve. I've got all the rinse water pulled through the foils. Now what we're going to do, turn off the vacuum pump here, and I want to look at my incineration oven here. It's a Black & Decker. What I did is I took the case off and I put wool, ceramic wool, all the way around it. Down in here, I removed the device that turns it off, the thermostatic device, and I bypassed it by connecting those two wires together. So now what we have is when we turn this furnace on, it comes on and stays on. It doesn't shut off thermostatically. Back here I had a piece of rebar, so I just got it hot and burn it through both of these plastic clips. And then I've got some ceramic wool insulating the back to hold the heat in. Underneath I've got the bottom of the oven sitting on a piece of refractory brick here to hold all the heat in. Now what we're going to do is turn this thing on and let this thing start heating up. And while it's heating up, I'm going to go up here and get our foils out of the funnel and into a melt dish and get those things in that oven so we can incinerate our foils. Get the foils out of this funnel now and get those down into this melt dish. be kind of tricky. Let me see if I can get this down a little bit closer. Or just kind of pull these out of here now and get everything. Well, let's do this. Let's put our filters that we saved previously. Those are going in. These are the filters from the filterings that we did earlier in the process. Let's see if we can get this out of here without creating a mess. All right. Boom. Got everything out. Now we'll get it into the burn off oven. All right, here we go. We're going to move the oven into place here. It's heating up. Just going to scoot it from the fume hood here so we can vent any vapors that are produced into the hood. Now we're going to put our here's our foils. We're going to put this in the oven now and let this incinerate. Here it goes. Now let me push this down a little bit here. Time right now is 7:43. Close the lid and let this thing heat up and incinerate our material. I had to move the oven back towards the fume hood. Some of those vapors were beginning to get into the workshop there. The oven worked very nicely after I got it dialed in and got all the parameters working correctly, and it really does a good job of incinerating. It's been in there about 20 minutes now. I'll open this up and just check it out and see what we got going on. Got 646 degrees Fahrenheit, 341 Celsius. Just going to leave this in here and let this continue to burn. See if we can get it up around 800 if it'll go that high, and get all this material incinerated real good. It's looking good. I've had this in here about an hour now. I got the temperature up to, I did see 810 there for a second, 409 Celsius. So it's almost 800 degrees. To turn this off, I think we've got it. And let's take a look at these foils now. See how this looks. I think that oven did a fantastic job here. Oh yeah, everything's been completely burnt. No paper left in there. And I think we're good to go here. It burnt everything. No traces of paper in there. That is just fantastic. So it took about an hour to get everything burnt up. Now we're ready to go to the next step. All right, the next step is to get these in this beaker here. And we're going to start dissolving these foils now in aqua regia. Just real careful here. There we go. 600 milliliters of hydrochloric acid here. Up to the 600 milliliter mark. Alright, I'm running out of room in my fume hood. I'm going to have to take some of these beakers. I think that's pretty much done. Been in there all day cementing out that silver, so I think that reaction is complete. This one looks like it's still got a little bit of fumage going on. What I'm going to do, I think now, is take these out and we'll store these container. Get these out of the way here. I gotta get the I got silver in here that's been dissolving all day. I get this down off the heat. Gold foils and some hydrochloric acid now. I'm going to put this up here on the heat. And we're going to start adding small doses of nitric acid and start dissolving those foils. All right, I've got the heat on medium high. I'm going to start putting in some nitric acid now, and we'll start dissolving these foils. One, two, three, four, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. That'll be 30 milliliters of concentrated nitric in there now. And we'll just let this react. I'm flying by the seat of my pants here with the nitric acid dosing. I know that you can add nitric and judge by how it reacts to determine whether or not you'll need to add more. I'm going to reach in here and get a little of the solution on a piece of filter paper. I'm going to test it with stannous chloride testing solution. And boom, we've got a black stain. We've got gold going into solution big time. I've got quite a few pieces down in the bottom of the beaker there. I can see them. So what I'm going to do, I've already got 30 milliliters of nitric in there. I'm going to put another few doses here in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. It's reacting pretty good there. So now I've got 42 milliliters of concentrated nitric in there. I'm going to crank the heat on this and let this cook until all them fumes go away, and then we'll look in there and see what we got. This has been on the heat now for about 40 minutes. I added 2 more, 3 3 milliliter doses. So I've got a total of 48 milliliters of concentrated nitric in there. I'm going to put another 3 milliliter dose. If I get this in, this will be 51 milliliters. It's not really reacting that vigorously. So I'm thinking we pretty much got everything that's going to dissolve is in solution. So I'm going to let this boil until the color goes away, and then we're going to turn the heat off and let it settle. This is looking real good. Our solution has been on boiling now for about an hour and a half. All the fumes are gone. I'm going to pull it down off the heat there. We're going to rinse down the sides. And I'm going to let this settle. The video's already 45 minutes long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call it here. I'm going to go in and get some rest. We'll come back out tomorrow morning and pick up right where we left off. This will conclude part 3 of the series. Thanks for watching.